Hello everyone and welcome back. So today we are going to be going over decimals and adding and subtracting them, as well as going over estimation. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to start off with is estimation. So think of estimation as making a thoughtful guess. It's not the exact answer, but it's kind of close. We use estimation all the time, not even just for math, but it's whenever you're making an educated guess. So in shopping, an example that I like to give is if I want a new pair of shoes and they're $106, but I know they're 50% off, I could say, well, 106 is kind of close to 100, and half of 100 is around $50. So that means my shoes are going to cost me somewhere about $50. We use it with cooking. I'm sure everyone has heard their parents say, oh, it's just a pinch of salt. Well, a pinch is not a measurement, but we know if you have this much salt, maybe it's like a quarter of a teaspoon, or with time, I am about 10 minutes away from Target. So those are all ways that we can hear estimation in the real world. So when it's talking about decimals or word problems in general in math, you're going to hear the words almost, close to, or about. Those are keywords to tell you that you're estimating. For the first example, I went ahead and put estimate the sum of 2 and 9700ths plus 4 and 4 thousandths. We know from rounding from our previous lessons that 2 and 9700ths is really close to the number 3. So we're going to say that this number is about 3, and 4 and 4 thousandths is really close to the number 4. So this equation is very similar to 3 plus 4, which is equal to 7. So we know if we were to add these decimals together, our answer is going to be somewhere around 7. Example number 2 says to estimate the difference. Difference means we are subtracting 12 and 47 hundredths. If we use our rounding skills from last week, we know that this 4 tells this 12 to rest. So it is going to stay at 12. 5 and 89 hundredths. This 8 is going to tell the 5 to go ahead and raise the score to 6. So that this equation here is similar to saying 12 minus 6. 12 minus 6 is 6, so the difference of these numbers is about 6. So why is estimation important when we're talking about decimals? Well, some people find adding decimals tricky when they first start off, so estimation is a great way to check your work. So for example, going back to this first question, if you lined up your decimals incorrectly and instead of 4, maybe you got, let's say, 42, you could say, well, I know my answer was supposed to be close to 4, and 42 is definitely not close to 4, so I probably put my decimal in the wrong place. And that's why estimation is super, super important. All right, so we're going to talk about adding and subtracting decimals. You guys are going to love this. It's super simple. So when we're adding or subtracting decimals, there's 4 easy steps. We're going to line them up by the decimal. We're going to add zeros to any empty place values. So just like when we were comparing decimals, the first 2 steps are the same. We're lining them up by the decimal point, and then we're going to add zeros to any empty place values. Then we're going to add or subtract normally the same way you would a regular addition or subtraction problem, starting from the right-hand side of the equation, making your way to the left. And our last step is to bring down the decimal. So I'm going to show you 2 ways that we could do this. I'm going to show you with models, and I am going to show you regular. On like the FSA, I recommend you don't draw up models. I recommend that you do our standard algorithm just because it's faster. But while we're still getting used to doing this, we'll use the models, okay? So let's go ahead and use a model first. So we have 1 and 47 hundredths plus 1 and 35 hundredths. We know these are models here. We use them when we're in the classroom usually, and we have the 3D ones that you can play with. But here we just went ahead and drew them out. So this is 1 and 47. You can tell because this is the whole number 1. There are 4 tenths here. So this is 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths. And then each of these are 100ths. So each one of these are 100th. Just so you can kind of get a feel there of what these stand for. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at that. So that's 1 and 47 hundredths. So I'll go ahead and put this in one color. So this is 1 and 47 hundredths. That's this number over here. And then our second number, 1 and 3500ths, we have our whole number 1 here. Our 3/10 places. And just for clarification, these are like 1/10 or 0.1, that works too. And then here are our hundreds. So if we're using models, we're going to use our same normal addition strategies. So I'm going to zoom in on this just a little bit. That way you guys can see it a little bit better. Let's see. Perfect. All right. So we know when we're talking about numbers, whenever we reach 10, we would have to regroup. So it's the same thing here. So let's go ahead and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're going to put our 2 and we're going to regroup a 10 the same way we would with a whole number. All right. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And don't forget the one that we added. So that would be 8. We got to bring down our we have a decimal here. I don't know if you can see a decimal. And then 1 and 2. So this answer would be 2 and 82 hundredths. So that was with models. And then let's go ahead and use our standard algorithm that we learned earlier to go ahead and solve standard algorithm. Okay. Let's go ahead and lift this a little bit more. There we go. All right, so when we're adding or subtracting decimals, the first thing we need to do is line it up by the decimal. Perfect. Our step 2 is to add zeros to any empty place values. There's no empty place values here, so step 2 is done. Step 3 is to add or subtract normally. So 7 plus 5 is 12. Regroup our 1. 4 plus 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. 1 and 1 is 2. And then remember, our last step is to bring down the decimal. So we're just going to make like an arrow. That way you know it's going to go right there. So it'd be 2 and 82 hundredths. So what's really important is that you make sure that you bring down that decimal, because 282 is super far from 2 and 82 hundredths. If we were using estimation to check our work, we could say, well, this is about 1.5. And we can say that this is probably closer to the 1, or we could say 1.3 if you wanted to, or 1.4. That doesn't really matter. So let's say we said 1.4. We would have 2.9, which is really close to this. Or you can round it in a different way, and you could say, okay, well, 1 and 47 hundredths is closer to 1, and this is closer to 1. So we know our answer is going to be somewhere around the number 2. And 2 and 82 hundredths is pretty close to 2. Let's say you put your decimal in the wrong place and you got 28.2 or 28 and 2/10. You would know that you put your decimal in the wrong place, because 28 is really far from 2. All right, we're going to do subtracting now. So we're going to start off with the models like we did last time. But subtracting is a little bit different. So we're going to go ahead and put 4 and 55 hundredths minus 3 and 32 hundredths. And I think we're actually, yeah, we are missing a box on here, but that's okay. So this is actually supposed to have 4. This should be 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll just pretend it's here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ones. So this is a little different since we're not adding, we're actually taking away. We're going to start with our hundredths place on our second number, because right now we're representing 4 and 55 hundredths. So each of these are 1. Each of these are 1/10. And each of these are 100th. All right, so I'm going to subtract 200. So I'm going to go take these away. So I have 3 left. I'm going to go ahead and take away 3 tenths. So that would be 1, 2, 3. We're left with 2 tenths. And then we have our whole numbers here, and we're going to take 3 away. So we'll go ahead and take this one I made out. 1, 2, 3, and we are left with 1. So we have 1 whole, 2 tenths, and 3 singles left. So our answer would be 1 23 hundredths. So that would be with models. And now let's go ahead and double check our work using standard algorithm. So remember, adding and subtracting is actually the same steps, which is really nice. All right, so our first step is to line them up by the decimal. Done. Add zeros to any empty place values. In this case, we don't have any empty place values, so that's awesome. Add or subtract normally. So we're going to do 5 minus 2, which is 3. 5 minus 3, which is 2. And 4 minus 3, which is 1. Our last step is to bring down the decimal, so we're going to just bring it straight down, pretend there's an arrow there, so it would be 1 23 hundredths. If you want to check your work using estimation, you could say that this is close to the number 5, this is close to the number 3, so if we did 5 minus 3, we would get 2. And the number 1 23 hundredths is pretty close to 2, so you know that you probably did it correctly. Let's say you accidentally put the decimal over here behind the 2 and you got 12 3 tenths. You would say, I think I may have done something incorrectly. My decimal may not be in the right place. So that is how you add or subtract with decimals. I hope you found this helpful. This is what we will be going over for the next about week and a half. If you need any help, feel free to come to my office hours. Bye, guys.